All right, welcome to another episode of Untherapeutic. Today, I'm super excited. We got Dr. Demas, CEO, founder of Pearls of Change. I'm gonna let you go into all the amazing things that she has going on. But again, this is gonna be a great episode because this is a topic that we all deal with in relationships, and that is how do you fight fair? Again, conflict is inevitable, but again, you can't just come in hitting below the belt. And so we're gonna dive into how to fight fair, what it is that keeps us from fighting fair, even though we know what some of the stuff that we do is just foul, out of bounds. But before we get into it, Dr. Demas, tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice.
Again, I am Dr. Glenda Demas. I am a licensed professional counselor. I hold a PhD in health psychology. I'm licensed in Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, as well as Florida. And I do have an office in each state, with the exception of Florida, with 100% telehealth.
Mhm.
And I also developed a mental health wellness platform that allows the individuals access to therapists across the world.
Mhm.
So that is the gist of me professionally, and I'm excited to be joining you today, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, but look, I don't want you to be too humble. Tell us a little bit about the app that you had developed. I know that hopefully I'm not introducing it too soon, but this was an
No.
amazing platform again that is really going to be game changer in the space of mental health. And I want to make sure that anybody who hears this knows that this is something that you've been developing behind the scenes for quite some time.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that. Often I do kind of breeze through the things
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
want
mental
to
health platform. No,
you know.
I'm saying no regular everyday mental health platform. So.
But yes, absolutely. So I wanted to kind of bring the mental health space into tech and kind of allow those worlds to collide and give individuals access, as I stated, to therapists at their fingertips. In addition, resources. Our goal is to provide resources on a monthly basis, webinars. And if you are a part of the My Mind, My Mental community, you will have the ability to participate in those webinars and those trainings that we're offering just to support you guys on a consistent basis with maintaining your mental health on a daily basis. Now, the cool feature of My Mind, My Mental that I absolutely love is the fact that we created a mood tracker. And the
Mm,
mood tracker gives you the ability to track your mood on a daily basis. So, say for example, if 8 a.m. in the morning, you set the timer to track your mood and you're tracking your mood at 8 a.m., and
mhm,
you choose that you are anxious, I populate, I appear with a video to remind you of what to
mhm,
do to support your mental health in that moment. In addition, that data on a daily basis goes directly to your therapist, and your therapist have the ability to see exactly how you were feeling on Monday and how you felt Tuesday or how you felt Thursday. And then they get to talk to you about ways to consistently mitigate those emotions and just
mhm,
what you may have done in that moment to self regulate. And that tool, that resource alone is a game changer because it allows individuals to also be accountable for what it is that they're feeling. So
mhm.
thank you, Dr. Nick,
Yeah,
for giving me
absolutely.
an
And at
opportunity
the
to talk
end,
about
yeah,
that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end, we'll put some links to where people can actually access that. But in the meantime, how to fight fair. So, I want to get into the rules, but before we do that, let's just jump right in. Most
Okay.
people know, like they know what they shouldn't do when it comes to conflict.
Right.
Why
Right.
do we bypass that when we're in the middle of an argument?
Because our emotions actually often overrule our intentions.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
So you don't necessarily start out with the idea that this is about to go south. It just
Mhm,
happens that way because our emotions often overrule our intentions. Our amygdala, which is our brain's fear source or houses all of our fear and our emotions, is activated when conflict arises. So
mhm,
now you're in this fight, flight, or freeze stage, right?
Mhm.
So your emotions are now sitting in the front seat driving you, and your intentions and everything else is in the back seat. So there's no room for you to use logic in this time because your emotions have gotten the best of you. So that's why we're not fighting fair and we're not using the tools that we know to use.
You hear people talk about like mindfulness and all these things that you can do to kind of help regulate your emotions. But some people just they bring that other side of you out. And so is there anything that you can do in the moment? Obviously we know some of the stuff which I want to hear about, but like in the moment, let's say, you gone to therapy, you doing the mindfulness, and then you get to talking to somebody and then they trigger you and you just find yourself going back to the old version of you. What can you do in that moment?
In that moment, I always like to encourage individuals to reset
Mm,
right there in that very moment. Give yourself an opportunity to breathe.
mm,
Take a deep breath. Like the minute someone says something to you that's triggering, breathe.
breathe.
When you breathe, you are giving yourself an opportunity to allow your mind and your body to reset, to slow down and kind of navigate together. Okay.
Mhm,
And then once you do that, ask yourself, whatever the thought was for a response, if I say this, how will it be received?
mhm.
And then you lead in with what is my intent on
Yeah.
responding? What is it that I want to convey in
Mm.
this moment? And then that's how you kind of regain control and then lead in with,
Do you
a
do
solution.
you think it's more of a reflection of the other person or you? You know what
Oh,
I'm
you
saying? Mm,
100%. You should always be in control of your actions.
mhm.
I often we hear people say, what she should not have or he should
Yeah.
not have."
If
No,
only
you
you
should not
didn't,
have.
yeah.
Exactly. You shouldn't have. You should not have allowed them to take you out of your character. You should not have allowed them to make you navigate in a way that's displeasing to you, you
Mm,
know?
yeah.
So you are 100% in control of your actions and you have to be accountable for that at all times.
Yeah. It's we always say, look, conflict is inevitable. You're going you at some point, right? If you've been in a relationship with
Mhm.
someone, they gonna trigger you, you're gonna trigger them. Where do you draw that line though? I mean, again, I'm not talking about abuse or someone, like calling you out your name, but like, where's that line in your opinion? Like if you're working with a couple and
Mhm.
they're fighting, is there ever a point where you say, this is actually too much conflict?
Absolutely. When you notice the other party constantly, they're everything about them shifting. It's
Mhm.
becoming too much for them. Like their tone is elevated. They're fidgeting or they're giving you these stares like I'm about to, that's when you know, okay, well, this is a bit much. Like let's take a breather. That's when you're in the counseling setting. But when you're not in a counseling setting, you have to be aware of
Yeah,
when enough is enough. When you're
yeah,
at home and you're having conversations with your partner and it's getting heated, y'all have to find like a safe word. We
yeah.
often like to use pineapple. That's one that I
Okay.
use with my clients a lot. Pineapple. When you
Mhm.
feel yourself getting elevated and looking around because I want to throw something, pineapple. That
Yep.
means we need to reel it back in because it's now like you're triggered, I'm triggered, your emotions are all over the place, mine are as well. This isn't going to end well. So,
Mhm.
how about we call pineapple and reset and
Mm.
maybe come back to this at a later time?
Yeah. Is there a point where you think you should end the relationship?
Well, that's a
You
great
know what
question,
I'm saying?
right?
Again, I'm not talking about extreme cases, someone being abused. I mean, like this, man, I feel like because I had this couple one time, they were in counseling, they said, man, we don't know what's normal. Like we know it's
Mm,
normal to fight, but we
mhm.
don't know if the amount of fighting that we're doing is normal. And is
That's
this a
a
sign
great
that I'm with the
question.
wrong person?
Yeah,
Or is this just normal tension that I have to navigate in a relationship?
that's a great question. And that's an awareness question also, because if that person or party in the relationship can step back and take an evaluative measure of how they showed up in every other relationships, and if the
Mhm.
same version of them is showing up in each relationship, then you may not be a great partner. Like, you
Okay.
very well should probably not be in a relationship and just date casually,
Yeah.
with no expectations so that there are no arguments. But then
Mm.
if you have a couple that, like we constantly battle because we don't know how to agree to disagree or understand that we're not each other's enemies when there's conflict, that's
Mhm.
just something that has to be taught, and that can be taught in therapy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think sometimes, you take men, you take women, and I know you've seen it
Yeah.
all. Like probably, I mean, you've seen it all, right? Obviously, but when it comes to like these below the belt jabs,
Oh God.
what do you see most often when it comes to things that men may do and
Mhm.
things that women
Mhm.
may do? And
Mhm.
and I say that not to pit men versus women, but just so we could have that awareness to see, you know what, this is sometimes my go-to, and it's really detrimental to my spouse. You know
So
what
I'm
I'm
going to
saying?
give you the two most common for each one of them, right?
Okay.
So for women, one of the most common below the belts is bringing up the past.
Okay.
Constantly talking about, even though they may have made a decision that I'm going to forgive you, we're going to work through this, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. The minute
Mhm.
conflict happens, I'm bringing up the past.
Okay. Why is
You
that?
did 5, 6 years ago, you whatever. Yep, I'm bringing up the past.
Yeah.
And the reason for each that I'm gonna give you, each example is the same. The reasons are the same, okay?
Okay.
The second one is attacking the other party's character. You just like your daddy.
Yeah.
Oh, you a narcissist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we love that one.
Yes. Oh my God. The late 2000, 2020s and all of that has
Mhm. All narcissists, yeah.
everybody is a narcissist, right?
Yep.
But we don't realize that that's attacking someone's character, because what if they are struggling with narcissistic personality
Mm,
disorder? Do we understand that many individuals that have NPD have experienced some sort of traumatic experience in their life, and this personality disorder was cultivated to help them
mhm.
learn how to cope on a consistent basis? If you knew that, you would look at it so differently because it's rooted in trauma, right?
Yeah. Good.
So most, when you're arguing, you're bringing in, oh my God, those things, right? That's common for women.
Mhm.
Men, here we go. Stonewalling. I don't want to talk about it. You know what? Maybe I'm not good in relationships.
Yep.
Manipulation, right?
Mhm.
Each of those that I just explained are done to regain control of the argument, because they may feel like they're losing. So let me figure out a way so I can regain control or move away from accountability.
Okay. Yep.
So
That's
those
a
are
big
the
word.
reasons why absolutely both parties, male or female, use their below the belt tactics so that they can either relinquish accountability or regain control because they feel like they're losing.
But here's the thing, like in the middle of an argument, no one says, you know what, I'm doing this to avoid accountability.
Mm.
Um,
What?
I mean, that would be too accountable, right? Too much self-awareness, right? Uh, and some people actually never come back to that place. How do you kind of get someone to see that? Because we'll apologize for hey, sorry, I shut down, sorry, I said this, sorry, I did that, but we won't say sorry that I didn't take accountability.
Mhm,
You see
mhm.
what I'm saying? How do you get someone to? I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but like to
Yeah,
see that a part of these below the belt jabs are exactly what you just said. You're trying to
yeah,
regain control or you're
yeah.
trying to avoid accountability. How do you get someone to come to that on their own?
They have to be aware.
Yeah.
They have to be aware. You
Mm,
can't, because keep in mind, these are characteristic traits that they are exerting naturally. This is something that they have allowed themselves to comfortably sit at the root of their response bank when
mm,
they're in conflict. So at some point, awareness sets in, right? And now they're able to say, you know what? I realized that when I said you are a narcissist, didn't necessarily mean that I know 100% that you have been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. I just wanted to offend you.
Mm,
I wanted to offend you and hurt you the way I was hurting. So I
yeah,
started name calling. But you can't do that until you become an aware individual of how your actions are affecting your connection.
yeah. I think about so yeah, I mean, obviously this doesn't happen, but just say hypothetically, someone comes to that
Yeah.
awareness and they say, you know what, man, I really apologize. And then let's say 6 months later, they do it again. You know what I'm saying? And
Okay,
then say
that's a
3 months, they
great
do it
question.
again.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there ever a point where it's kind of like, okay, you're aware and you apologize, now I'm really interpreting what you're doing even worse because
You know what you're doing is
you
wrong.
know, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that?
That's tough. But you know what? As a partner, what you can do is keep bringing them back to that place.
Mm,
You know,
okay.
when this happened, you shared with me that you knew that this was something that you're doing wrong. Are you doing this intentionally, or did you kind of like, just kind of stray away from what you know to be right? Which
Yeah.
one? Give that that questioning on two spectrums. Like either you really or you really just don't know. Which one?
Yeah. Or you don't care, right?
Or
You know
you
what I'm saying?
don't care. And you
Yeah.
allow them to explain, and guess what that's doing? Putting it back on them.
Yeah.
It's putting the accountability back on them and giving them an opportunity to respond to you in a way that helps you understand what your next course of action should be.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna play the devil's advocate because I hear this and I know you hear this, and people always say, I'm tired of being a bigger person.
Oh, just keep being the bigger person. Because at some point you'll run into a bigger person and
Mm.
then life will be peaceful.
That's good. That's good. But you hear that, right? Because people do get
Absolutely.
tired of you throw this jab and then
Uh-huh.
I bring it back, you apologize, and you feel this strain of like, man, I'm always, and again, it's probably not always, but people feel like, man, I'm always the one that's having to be the bigger person and really coach you on this consistent behavior
Yeah.
that you're doing that you know is
Yeah.
unhealthy and toxic.
Yeah. But that goes back to your earlier question of when do you know when enough is enough?
Yeah.
When do you know that it's actually time to walk away? Because this is bigger than a differences of opinion. Like we genuinely do not connect. Like we cannot, our rhythm is way off. Like
Yeah.
there is no understanding of anything, and we're just wasting one another's time.
Mm,
That's when you get to bring that question into play and you
mm.
get to come to the table and say, you know what? We very well may be better off as just friends, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's
Because
a tough conversation.
yeah, and that is a tough conversation. And most of the time, many people are afraid to have that conversation and thinking that, they're never going to change or, oh, I may not find anyone better than this person. But if you are constantly arguing
Mm,
about the smallest things, there's no unity, no understanding for the smallest things. Walking away and allowing yourself just an ounce of peace
mm,
gives you perspective,
yeah.
and at that point, you can start changing things in your life for the better.
So many fights I see are because one person really misinterpreted what
Mhm.
the other person said or did.
Mhm.
And it's like, you're in this counseling, it's like, no, they did this, and they kind of create this narrative in their head around the intent of what
Mhm.
the person meant when they said this, and you just didn't forget, you intentionally did this, and how do you help someone develop healthy perspective as it relates to how they're interpreting their spouse's behavior? Because again, if we would assume the best, a lot of times it's like, okay, well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But then, you sit with it for a second and you're like, nah, no, and you know what I mean? And it festers, and then you come in with a certain energy level, not because of what they did, but really because of how you interpreted what they did. How do you help someone have it improve in that area?
So the biggest challenge is getting individuals to move away from listening with the emotional ear, right?
Mm, okay.
Because listening emotionally stops you from being able to use sound judgment and how to respond to a situation and how you should perceive what's actually being shared with you in that moment. So if
Mhm,
you can take the emotion out of it, that helps you respond. And then when your partner is talking to you and they're sharing their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, we need to make sure that we're listening to understand
mhm. Yeah,
instead of listening to respond.
yeah,
That
yeah,
response is rooted in emotion.
yeah,
But if you allow yourself to understand, here is where clarity and a great perspective can come in at.
yeah. This is tough when people have been together for an extended period of time
Yeah.
because they'll say, and they didn't tell me that, no, you don't know her like I know her. You don't know him
Mhm.
like I know.
But do you really? Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
know
do
what I'm
you
saying?
really?
And so you're almost trying to help them leave a little bit of margin for them to be wrong. I mean, not to be wrong, but you know what I'm saying? For them to have a different experience with their spouse, but they've experienced so much of this one thing that it's hard for them to listen to understand because it's like, nah, you don't know him like I know him. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
how do you help them get to that place when they've, been burnt so many times or been disappointed or so many
Yeah.
times?
Yeah. So this is where I always like to talk about that five-letter word,
Mm,
grace.
okay.
That
Mm,
is so important, especially in relationships. You have to learn to give grace, you
yeah.
know, because no one is perfect and we're all going to make mistakes at some given point. And here's something that I always like to share. Two things can be true.
Mm, mhm.
You can truly know that person and you can truly not know that person.
Yeah.
And there could be truth to
Mm,
that, to both of those things. Taking the time to understand which one you really want to hold more weight is way more important than proving a point.
that's
So
fair.
if you want to make sure that you really get to know that person, then you're going to extend grace.
Mm,
You're going to also understand that there's often room for growth. That who I started out with 20 years ago isn't who this person is to date 20 years later.
mhm,
Now, they may have picked up other maladaptive behavior along the way, and that's perfectly fine. You get
mhm,
an
mhm.
opportunity to explore that too. You
Yep, yep.
know, you just have to be open for change. And that's something that most couples struggle with is they look at it as how we started. It was either this a positive or a negative, and here we are now, it's either positive or negative.
Yeah. So let's say they're not in a relationship. Say you are talking to a young woman, a young man, and they're in the, beginning stages of dating. Okay.
Mm, okay.
What advice would you give both of them as it relates to here's some red flags that you want to be mindful of when it comes to handling conflict?
That's a great question. Great question. So, I would say the biggest red flag that one of the biggest
Mhm,
red flags is the inability to communicate during
mm,
conflict, shutting down. I don't want to talk about it. Um, you know, going days without, being present,
mm, mm.
inability constantly getting blowing up if you
Yep.
ask them a question or deflecting
Mhm,
or maybe we should break up, things of that identifies someone that does not know how to comfortably navigate through conflict.
yeah.
Instead of dealing with conflict, they'd rather avoid conflict, and they say things like, you know what, I don't like to argue, oh, this is drama.
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
we're talking about something that is challenging to me that
Yeah.
you should be concerned about if I'm a potential partner for you. You should be
Yeah.
open to hearing how I feel about certain things. So that, inability to have uncomfortable conversations and,
Mm,
quick to flare up, emotions, cursing, you
yeah.
get elevated and I don't want to talk about it and things like that.
Mhm.
That's not healthy. Those are red flags. That's someone that lacks internal locus of control, and you might want to run.
Yeah, yeah, keep your distance.
Mhm.
I hear people say, "No, it's not that I don't wanna," not that I'm afraid of conflict. I just feel like we've already talked about this.
Well,
Or
clearly,
I
if it's on the
I
table again,
you know what I'm
no
saying?
clarity.
Yeah, and so speak to that because people will say, "Man, no, no, Dr. Hart, I don't have no issues with conflict. We just already talked about this." Or I feel I feel like they just want to pick a fight, or I feel like I don't know what else to say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, in a situation like that, honestly, I would always lead in with clearly there's no clarity. If that person is coming back and wanting to have the same conversation, right? There's no clarity. And if in that moment we get clarity, that party is able to ask the questions that they need to ask. I want to ensure that we're going to close the door on that and move on to something else. Like this isn't something that we're going to come constantly keep coming back to so that we can move on because I'm sure that there's many other topics of conversations that we have to explore. But if this one topic keeps coming up, that means that person isn't clear on some of, the context
Yeah.
surrounding that topic and they want some clarity. And as your partner, you want to make sure that you offer that for them. And most people don't want to deal with that
Mm.
constant topic because they know they may have left out a lot of pieces of it.
Yeah,
And
it's
if they
something.
get to questioning too much, they're going to find out. So let me do what I can, in the most loud way to
Yep.
move my partner away from that specific topic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I know we've talked about this, but I don't know why it keeps coming back up in my head. Like, because I have people who are at the end of their road.
Mhm.
Okay. And they say, okay, I've done this. I tried to talk to them and they keep shutting down. Or when I bring this up, they explode, they reverse it. Well, you act like and it's just one of those things that I just don't want to deal with. To,
Yeah.
to the person who, and let's take leaving off, let's say that's not an option. Okay.
Right,
Let's say we
right,
got
right.
kids, we got this. What do you say to that person who keeps hitting a wall because there's so many unresolved issues and they don't want to keep nagging, they don't want to keep bringing it up, but they feel like their hands are tied because, again, the person that they have these issues with is unwilling to engage.
Wow, yeah, that's tough. That's a tough place to be in. Yeah. So what I always like to recommend I'm big on communication, you know,
Yes.
and even if it's tough, you have that conversation. And I personally think that even though they may have layers of challenges that they want to focus on what's keeping you up at night.
Mm. Okay.
Whichever is the most pressing that doesn't allow you to sleep well at night is what you need to talk about. Is what you need to bring to the table. Don't bring to the table how he spent $1,500 on a trip with his friends.
Yep.
Y'all had a conversation that y'all were not going to do that, but yet talk about the $15,000 that
Mhm.
was squandered off for whatever reason
Mhm,
and
mhm.
you didn't get an opportunity to have that conversation with him. Focus on the higher priority of a challenge and then let everything else just kind of almost, and I hate to say this because I don't believe in things that work itself out, but you have to let it kind of work itself out because if you're in this space of constantly trying to feel like you need to address every single thing, yes, your partner is going to start feeling like you're nagging and,
Mhm.
every time, I talk to you, there's a challenge. There is a challenge because a lot is going, unresolved.
That's good. That's good. And I love, you talk about what is the one thing that keeps you up at night?
Yeah,
Because again, we're wired different. And some people, they may not like to admit it, but they find a million things wrong. And
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, I didn't see a lot
Especially
of
if you're somebody that don't have a lot of time on your hands.
why you put the color clothes in? No, I'm just saying. And I'm just like, oh my God, like
Right.
you
Right.
stressing me out. I'm a counselor,
Yes.
right? Like, damn, no,
For
he's
sure.
stressed.
Yeah. Like, why we have to talk about this right
But that one thing, like you said, that one thing that keeps you up, that's
now?
good. Any other advice or any just last thoughts when it comes to how to fight fair that you feel like people should know?
I think that a lot of couples really don't know how to navigate through conflict. We say that, oh, you know the right thing to do in conflict, but do you really know the right thing to do?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know? So if I could leave you with anything that I want to stand, I want it to be stick to the present in
Yeah.
conflict. Like, don't reach back and bring up things that took place 6 months ago that you didn't get an opportunity to talk about.
Yeah.
But
But
talk
now you
about
do.
exactly. Talk about what the presenting challenge is. And secondly, on the same level, your partner is not your enemy.
Mhm.
Remember that during conflict, you're just having a differences of opinion. I am not arguing with somebody from third grade that stole my lunch, and I've been waiting to cross paths with
Yep.
you so I can make you feel how I felt when I was in third grade and I didn't have my lunch for that day because you
Mhm.
stole my
Mhm.
lunch. You
Now's just
know,
my
like
time.
your
Yeah.
partner is not your enemy. And if you
Yeah.
navigate with those two things in mind, sticking to the present, and your partner is not your enemy, you can work through all areas of conflict and come out just as positive as you did before you went in.
Awesome. Awesome. Dr. Demas, I
Yeah,
appreciate your time today. Where can
absolutely.
people find you online?
Well, you can find me at the Dr. Yvette Demas, and that is on Instagram. Again, the Dr. Yvette Demas. Website is www.mymindmymental.com. That is our amazing platform. www.mymindmymental.com with all Y's. MYMYNDMENTAL.com. And then you can also find me at pearlsofchange.com.
Awesome. I was just gonna say you got to lead a website too, because if
Yes,
somebody knows a couple out there that need to work on their conflict, and so
absolutely.
if that is
Absolutely.
you, definitely reach out. You're gonna get an amazing therapist. So, Dr.
Yes.
Demas,
Thank you for
thank you
that.
so much. Make sure
As
you follow us online. We'll put all those links in the bio. And so,
yes, for sure. And thank you for having me today, Dr. Nick.
thank you.
All right.